Okay, guys, take two. So, as you guys may know, I like Genshin Impact. A lot of us did. Some of you may know that I went to school for child development, elementary education, that sort of field. So today, we're going to take those two concepts and basically put them together. And I'm going to tell you guys what I feel each Archon that we've met so far, so Venti, Zhongli, and A, which one would they really fit into in the whole parenting? Because it's a spectrum, and the best way to see it, the best way to visualize it, would be on an XY axis, right? And then there's like an arrow. Oh, hold on. There's like an arrow over here. Arrow pointing up, and an arrow pointing this way, like a regular XY graph you would see in math class. So with this one right here being structure, and let's make that print a little bit smaller. Or, hold on, never mind. Okay, hold on. Make it a little bit smaller there. As you can see, I am currently struggling. Okay, so 12. So this is structure. And then over here would be love, right? So this little grid right here would be low love, low structure. This would be high love, low structure. This would be high love, high structure, and this would be low love, high structure. Okay, so let's introduce you to the 4 different types of parenting. So this one over here would be what we call the authoritarian style of parenting. And generally speaking, authoritarian parents tend to be almost like a helicopter parent in a way, but in a bad way. You know, there's no real good helicopter parenting, but you know. But basically, these parents are very strict. They have high hopes for their child, but they don't really care about how the child feels. They feel like their child must obey them without question, doesn't care how the child feels about a situation. It only matters what the parent feels about the situation, essentially. So that's an authoritarian. It's a very strict, very rigid, not very loving environment. So over here we have the authoritative parenting style. Now the authoritative parenting style is you have high structure, but you also have high love. So this is more of the parent decides at the end of the day, but the child is allowed to have some input. So the parent might say, okay, you need to do one extracurricular activity, but the parent doesn't force them to do piano or sports or anything specific. They allow the child to give the parent ideas. And it's more of a collaborative parenting style while the parent still has decision, the ultimate decision, essentially. So over here, the low love, low structure would be neglect. So neglect, as most of us watching this video probably already know, is when a parent doesn't properly take care of their child. It can be due to poverty, in which case there may be a high love, like that parent may be genuinely trying, and this doesn't, the low love, low structure neglect that I'm talking about is not that case. The low structure, low love form of neglect is when a parent just abandons their child, doesn't properly take care of them, just a true no excuse form of neglect. That is what I'm talking about here. So, and then the last last parenting style I'm going to talk about today is the laissez-faire parenting style, which is a low structure but a high love form of parenting. Now, this would be where the parent kind of lets the kid do whatever they want. There's no real structure, but the parent does provide like basic needs, and the parent does love the child. But I watched Mean Girls last night, and it's kind of like that one mom who basically like acts like she's one of the girls and doesn't really parent very well. It's kind of like that, essentially. Like, she does love the child, but she doesn't provide the structure that her daughter needs, and that arguably could be a possibility as to why that child acts the way she does. Okay, so now that we have our 4 main parenting styles and we're all on the same page with that, let's talk about the Genshin Impact Archons. So far, we've met 3: Venti, Zhongli, and A, or as they would otherwise be known as Barbados, Morax, and Ball. So, the first one, let's start with Venti, or Barbados. So, in the game, it's shown that he does care for his people, as the reason why he became an Archon in the first place is because he helped his people free the people from that, like, he fought in a war to help free his people. Like, he genuinely does care about them, and he comes back during the Storm Terror crisis. Like, if Venti didn't care about Mondstadt, he wouldn't do a lot of the things that he has canonically done. So, we can cross out neglect and authoritarian so it's not, Venti is neither of these. As for authoritative or laissez-faire, despite him loving his people, he does tend to not show up unless things are really, really, really bad. So I wouldn't say that he has a high structured parenting style. I would put him in the laissez-faire parenting style category due to how he runs his country, essentially. He is a very big believer in freedom, which is why he's not in either of the high structure ones, but he does care for his people, which is why he's not full-blown in the neglect category, if that makes sense. Alright, so next is Zhongli. So Zhongli, he does have, like, obviously now he has given the affairs over to the Tianquan, which is valid. But before that, he did do the Rite of Dissension every year, and he told his people how he wanted things run. So there was a high structure. However, he did not run every single facet of his people's lives. So, he does care for his people. He made the deal with the Fatui to give up his gnosis, his ability to be a god, in exchange for the safety of his people, which is a very big sacrifice. Like, I don't think we in the community talk about how big of a sacrifice that is. So I would definitely put him in the authoritative category. So good job, Zhongli. You're an actually good parent. Nice job. Alright, so now for A. So, a lot of people may say that she would be authoritarian because, you know, the Vision Hunt decree, killing her own subjects. Like, there's a lot of, like, there's a lot of really bad mistakes that she's made. And they're a little more than just mistakes. It's just if I, as a teacher, had a child in my class whose parents acted towards them the way A acted towards her people at the beginning of the Archon Inazuma questline, I would call Child Protective Services. Like, no doubt. So she's definitely not in, like, there is definitely some dysfunction here. But the thing is, why? Why is there dysfunction? Because the thing is, not all abusive parents mean to be abusive, if that makes sense. There's a lot of reasons why parents abuse their children. That could be they had trauma, they suffer from mental health problems. Like, there are a lot of reasons. And that does not discount any sort of trauma the child may go through. Like, that, like, your feelings about that are real and legitimate regardless of the reason. The parent should not have done that. However, we are analyzing the Archons, so for the sake of this video, we're going to kind of take a deeper look into her psyche. So, we find out in her, oh shoot, come on. We find out in her Archon quest that the reason why she pursued eternity, the concept of eternity so aggressively as an Archon, was due to the trauma she endured during the Archon War, which resulted in Makoto's death. So there is a reason why she pursued this concept. The way she pursued it was absolutely dysfunctional, and she probably should have looked at it a little more, but trauma and grief can do really scary things to the human psyche, so I imagine the Archon psyche works in a similar way. So, she aggressively pursues this concept of eternity after a traumatic event. So where does that put her on our scale? Well, the reason why she pursues it is, for Inazuma in particular, is because she doesn't want to hurt, she doesn't want her people to hurt the way she hurts. So in a very odd way, the Vision Hunt Decree, all of these things that have hurt the people of Inazuma and in a way have passed the trauma onto them. In a way, that was her way of showing her love for her people. And obviously, she's definitely in either the authoritarian or the authoritative class. She's definitely not in the low structure because, all these things. She would definitely not be in the same class as Menti, and she's definitely not in the neglect. Because, she had the Raiden Shogun be her puppet and her eyes and ears. So, where does that put us exactly? Well, I would put her, this is a bit of an out-of-the-box thinking, literally in this case, but I would put her somewhere in between authoritarian and authoritative, because there was love in her intentions. Her intentions were good, but due to the trauma she experienced and the grief she felt after Makoto's death, one could argue that that warped her sense of perception and perhaps her judgment, which resulted in all the bad things that happened to Inazuma. So I would put her in authoritative, but dysfunctional due to trauma. And then let's move that on over. And make it a little bit smaller. Probably about a 14 right there. And let's make the box a little bit smaller. And move it right about in the middle here. Okay. So let's put A right here. And move that over just a little bit so she's right in that middle ground right around here. And yeah, so those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments section. If you're new around here, be sure to subscribe and check out my links in this description. Be sure to give this video a like if you found it entertaining, educational, or anything like that. And I will see you guys next time. Bye!